Episode number 81. 81 Gaia's Invasion. Cain knew arguing with Apex would be futile, so he did not waste his time on it. Besides, he knew this one was right, and it was up to him to figure things out. He spent the next few days cultivating and increasing his astral wave. There were still 2 slivers of the dragon blood grass, but he was not ready to use them yet. When Monday came, Levi and Beals were surprised to see Cain's appearance, as it told the duo that he underwent marrow washing. Although they were astonished, because Cain was still a level 2 wave warrior, it made sense once they connected it to the massive reward from the Pillar of Mind's cadet ranking. Cain did not hide the information about the Ego Eternal Path of Power and Zarak from the duo. There were no downsides in sharing it, as his unique Ego Eternal matrix only belonged to him, and no one could take it. Besides, the events in the Pillar of Mind were public knowledge, and he was sure that every powerhouse in the collapsing lightning sector already knew of his uniqueness. The fact that up until now, no one from any noble family even dared to contact him gave Cain an idea of just how powerful Zarak was. Of course, he never thought of blindly trusting his safety to a stranger. Not to mention that, for those that focused on the Ego Eternal Path of Power, being under the constant protection of someone else was diametrical, as if crippled their willpower. With all the major problems handled, Cain began a sort of routine. He would go to the auditorium from Monday to Wednesday, improving his understanding of the wave, dark races assassination, and military tactics. As for the rest of the week, Cain focused all that time on missions, in which he would have to face strong and ferocious wave beasts. He made sure to pick the ones that would push him to the limit, and where there was a real chance of death. If Cain wanted to push his mind and ego to a point where he could achieve the first realm of the Ego Eternal Path of Power, he needed to put himself in a position where his life was truly in danger. The only way Cain could free his mind from all external perception and find his heart's desire was through life and death trials. More than once, the enemies were so powerful that they forced him to run away. As the weeks passed, Cain's aura became sharper, and a sense of dangerous bloodlust emerged from his body due to all the death he unleashed. Cain returned to the Imperial Lightning Fort in the middle of the night. His hair had grown back, and while his skin kept its smoothness, there were minor wounds around his body due to the multiple battles. Cain got down from the military truck in which he arrived and sent it on its way with several corpses that he hunted down for his mission. As he saw the vehicle going away, a reflective light appeared in his eyes. Next week will mark 6 months since I arrived at the collapsing lighting, and the academy curriculum will change. The first 3 months of the military academy involved cultivation and physical training, but people like Cain took a different path through the secret trial. Next came the formative stage, which involved the 3 major classes Cain took every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. After 3 months, he had already learned everything Razman and Vice Captain Joseph could tough him regarding Doc Race's assassination and military tactics. Wave cultivation classes were different as you would never have enough training in the far wave arts, and the ones imparted by Wink carried on. However, it was no longer mandatory for the cadets to assist them. People like Cain, who had already mastered his astral wave, did not need more classes as it would prove futile. It would be better for Cain to train his abilities with enemies that truly went after his life. The following 6 months were known as the Golden Months, as the collapsing Lightning Military Academy's cadets got access to great wonders. There were all kinds of courses available for them that would allow them to embark on professions, such as wave crafters and the like. If you proved talented in any profession, a fate full of wealth awaited you. Anyone could take those courses and prove their abilities and talent, but while they accepted everybody, they also asked for payment. Other than the access to professional courses, the Gold Months also granted a chance for the cadets to train in military specializations. Unlike the professions courses, which you would enter just by paying the fee, the military specialization courses were free, but only a few could access them. They would test your talent in that field, and only the best of the best would get the quotas. For the cadets who neither had the money to take the professions courses nor the talent for the military specializations, they would spend the rest of their time in the military academy doing missions before returning to their homes. Cain ignored the profession courses as he did not have time to spend on them, nor the desire to learn them. However, things were different when it came to military specializations. There was one that really drew his attention. Military specialization, assassin. According to the course description, the class would teach you how to infiltrate secure locations, keep a low profile, and the best and more practical ways of killing a person. Kane did not forget what happened in his first mission and how he swore to take Mayor Classius's life. And since he did not want the Imperial military force branding him a criminal, he could not leave any evidence. He was walking toward his residence when his eyes widened. The reason was that light began to shine over the entire city and was the middle of the night. A feeling of utter and absolute danger assaulted him as he looked to the sky and saw something he would never forget. A man was standing in the sky, bathed in golden flames that illuminated everything around him. Despite the immense distance between Kane and that man, this one unleashed such a terrifying presence that he felt they were right next to each other. However, what truly frightened him was the fact that the person in the sky was not a human but an Atrox. Less than a second after his golden flames shone over the entire Imperial lightning fought, that man raised his hand and generated a massive meteorite. That meteorite was not only more than 500 meters wide, almost half the size of the fort, but golden flames also covered every corner of it, setting the oxygen in the sky ablaze. Kane could only watch as the Atrox waved his hand down, firing that massive golden meteorite toward the Imperial lightning fort.
Boom.
It moved so fast that it instantly broke the sound barrier, generating a sonic boom. Kane had already faced death multiple times and found a way to survive every obstacle in his path. Still, seeing that golden meteorite about to crash into the Imperial lightning fought, he found no way out. There was nothing Kane could do. He would die once that meteorite clashed, regardless of how much he wanted and strived to survive. I am dead. That was the last thought that crossed Kane's mind when the golden meteorite was an instant away from crashing into the Imperial lightning fought.
SPOOOMMMs.
A massive explosion occurred, but unlike what Kane expected, the meteorite could not reach the Imperial lightning fought, as it crashed into an invisible force field that covered this one. Golden flames blasted in every direction as the meteorite shattered into thousands of pieces.
Crack.
Although the force field managed to endure that attack, cracks still appeared on its surface, making part of the blast's power and heat reach the Imperial lightning fought. The blast sent Kane crashing toward a building as fires started all over the fort. There was a metallic taste in his mind, but that mattered little as he could not take his eyes away from the sky. The Atrox raised his hand and was about to form another one of those city killer spells. Kane's brain was still having a hard time processing what was happening when a stream of black lightning emerged from the highest level of the Titan Tower. It moved too fast for Kane to discern anything from it, but it clashed with the Atrox, generating a blast of golden flames and black lightning before shooting into the distance. Kane was just rising from the ground, still having difficulty figuring out what to do next, when explosions and flashes of light appeared in the distance, far from the fort. A sense of utter dread assaulted Kane as he understood what was happening. Powerhouses of the dark races invaded Gaia. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 82. 82 Collapsing Lightning Duke.
BIINNGGG.
The sound of alarms echoed through the Imperial lightning fought. Black lightning emerged from the Titan Tower, generating a dome over the fort. The next second, that same lightning formed hundreds of thunderbolts that flashed around the fort at a speed Wave warriors could not follow with their eyes. Kane's eyes were glued to the Titan Tower as he saw this one activating its true power, and then dozens of figures emerged from it and flew into the distance.
Boom. Boom. Boom.
Every individual generated several sonic booms as they instantly achieved a speed many times faster than sound. All cadets must return to their residences and remain there until further notice. Anyone that disobeys this rule will be considered a traitor to the Godslayer humankind empire and executed on the spot. Kane was still trying to figure out what to do when that message arrived through his AI chip module. His mind was in shock, so he could not analyze that command but did not dare to defy it and dashed to his residence. It did not take him long to reach the building, and just like other cadets, Kane ran to his residence and only relaxed once the door closed behind him. The windows were now covered by a wall, shutting down any connection with the outside. That was done for two reasons: to protect the cadets and make sure none could leave. Until proven otherwise, everybody was a possible traitor. Kane would have noticed that if not for his current state of mind. He almost plummeted once he entered his room, and even then, he only had the strength to sit on the ground. The sight of that golden meteorite crashing toward the Imperial lightning fort did not leave his mind. Kane's greatest life and death tribulations up to this point were when he faced the Atrox in the secret trial and Dimitri in the Whisper Forest. However, everything was different in those cases. Although the Atrox and Dimitri were more powerful than Kane, he was not hopeless. He still had the power to face them, or at least put up some resistance. Nevertheless, there was nothing Kane could do against that golden meteorite. His life was in the hands of others, and if not for the lightning Imperial fort's force field, he would have died. If my last mission had taken longer and I had not returned to the fort in time, what would have happened? That thought crossed Kane's mind, and his body began to tremble. Understanding how little control he had over his life was a hard blow. Apex was aware of Kane's mental state and was about to speak when he saw the hands of the young man stop shaking. Kane's eyes glowed with monstrous red light as the fear in his face vanished, and he began to clench his fists with so much strength that blood began to leak from his palms.
I need to become stronger.
Kane had already found the answer to these feelings and engraved them in his mind and soul. After a few minutes, he relaxed his hands, went to his father's altar, and bowed before beginning to train. He took out a small chest from his space ring. In it, there was the last of the slivers of dragon blood grass. Without hesitation, he consumed it, and by tapping into his ego wave, he revolved the Fiend Devourer cultivation technique and the blood refinement art simultaneously. Once the energy of the dragon blood grass was over, Kane took Doc Race's hearts from his space ring and began to consume them. He had purchased those through the military network. As his astral wave sawed and blood energy tempered his body, Kane's mind began to relax, allowing him to analyze his surroundings. He noticed the state of his residence, making it impossible for him to leave. That, plus the previous message, made things clear for him. There is no way a cadet could have the power to damage the Imperial lightning fort, but there is a chance one of them could be a spy or traitor working for the other side. Since there is too little information up to this point, the higher-ups decided to be decisive and ruthless. Kane had not a problem with that, nor did he care about the cadets that did. He focused his mind solely on his training. 2 weeks passed before the walls covering Kane's windows were lifted, and the artificial intelligence controlling the building unlocked his doors. Kane was so focused on his cultivation that he barely noticed the change, but a message arrived that he could not ignore. Kane Lorifa, report with Vice Captain Joseph in the south gate of the cadets section. A sharp light appeared in Kane's eyes as he read the message. He calmed his revolving astral wave and bowed to his father's altar before leaving the building. Although Kane did not activate his wave cloak, he ran at an impressive speed toward the designated location. There was no way the collapsing lightning sector could have achieved peace in just a few weeks, and every minute counted in times of war. It did not take long for Kane to reach the south gate, and he saw many cadets already there. He quickly located Levi and Beals and headed to the duo. Of course, other than nodding, none of them said much since this was definitely not the time for small talk. The Titan Towers, Lightning Dome, and Thunderbolts were still protecting the fort, but the cadets couldn't say just how well it would resist attacks with the power of those golden meteorites. Safety was not something any cadet could say they felt right now, which explained the worry on their faces. Vice Captain Joseph stood in silence as the cadets formed in front of him. Although he seemed fine, Kane noticed burning cuts near his neck, making it clear how dangerous the last few weeks were for him. Unlike the cadets who remained in their residences, the Imperial Lightning fort dispatched soldiers to the affected areas. Joseph was close to Wave Champion rank, hinting to Kane at the level of danger beyond the fort's walls. Once all the cadets were in formation, Joseph unleashed his aura, making all of them focus.
Powerhouses of the dark races invaded the collapsing lightning sector and attacked all major cities. It was an extremely well-coordinated effort, and the one leading the assault was the one that attacked the Imperial Lightning Fort, an Atrox god.
When the cadets heard those last words, a monstrous fear assaulted their hearts. A god was a terrifying figure capable of killing millions in a matter of seconds, but one of the Atrox Immotus race was a nightmarish monster that was virtually invincible in their minds. If the one leading the assault was an Atrox god, what chance did they have to survive? Just how many people had already perished? Would they be next? Joseph remained silent as all those questions began to assault the hearts of the cadets, threatening to shatter their spirits. He spoke again when despair was about to break some of them.
Luckily for us, the collapsing Lightning Duke was in the Titan Tower at the moment of the attack. He fended off the Atrox god, and after a long battle,
Joseph paused and waited for the cadet's expectation to reach the limit before showing a cold smile.
the collapsing Lightning Duke killed the Atrox god.
Silence, utter and absolute silence, reigned among the cadets after Joseph shouted those words. The Dark Race's invasion of the collapsing lightning sector was a display of weakness by the Godslayer humankind empire, but a Titan killing an Atrox god proved absolute power.
Yes, we did.
Some of the cadets could not control their excitement and shout. Joseph would usually reprimand that behavior, but allowed it this time as he understood the pressure everybody had felt during the last few weeks. Even he, a seasoned soldier, felt his blood burning when the higher-ups informed him that the collapsing Lightning Duke killed the Atrox god. The shock in Kane's heart was even stronger when he heard that news. That Atrox bathed in golden flames standing in the sky was like a divine existence capable of unleashing city-killer spells with a wave of his hand, yet now he was dead. That black lightning. Kane had not forgotten the stream of black lightning that emerged from the Titan Tower and drove the Atrox god away from the Imperial lightning fort. Until now, Kane had just assumed the one inside the black lightning had at most forced the Atrox god to escape, but the fact he took that monster's life was incredible. Killing a Dark Race's god was an incredible feat, but killing an Atrox god was something only the greatest figures of the Godslayer humankind could claim credit for. Without even realizing it, absolute respect and immense admiration filled Kane's heart as he thought of the collapsing Lightning Duke. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 83. 83 back to Corin City. Vice Captain Joseph allowed the cadets to cheer for a few moments before raising his hand, making silence return. A severe expression appeared on his face as he carried on.
Killing the Apex god took a tremendous toll on the collapsing Lightning Duke. He suffered severe injuries, and while his life was not in danger, he would have to spend a long time in secluded cultivation to recover. Otherwise, he would have already obliterated every trace of Dark Race's warriors in the collapsing lightning sector with his own hands.
Although that piece of information was not good, it did not surprise any of the cadets. A great battle was bound to leave wounds, especially if your enemy was a member of a race known for their incredible battle skills. No matter how amazing the collapsing Lightning Duke was, he was still a living entity and needed to heal after a great battle.
During these last 2 weeks, soldiers from the Imperial Lightning Fort had traveled the entire sector, killing most of the Dark Race's powerhouses that came with the Atrox god, but many remain at large. Of course, it is not your mission to hunt them down, as that would be suicide. Your job will be going to the cities affected by the incursion, enforcing military law, and establishing a perimeter where civilians can remain safe.
Leaving the fort did not make the cadets happy, as they understood that there were still great dangers looming in the darkness, but none complained. All those here took part in the military academy's secret trial, so they were not foreign to dangerous battles. Besides, they were all smart enough to understand that the chances of finding a Dark Race's powerhouse during their missions were almost null, as all those monsters were running away now that the Atrox god had perished.
Form groups of 10 according to your affinity.
Vice Captain Joseph gave that command and waited. Usually, in the military, you don't have the right to choose your teammates, but that did not matter since they knew their roles and could adapt to any other soldier. But Kane and the others were cadets and had yet to reach that level of synergy. Kane, Levi, and Beals only glanced before giving a slight nod. That was all the trio needed to know they would be working together. They trusted each other and none of them was so weak that it would become a burden. The trio was not very friendly with the other cadets. They simply joined a random group with 7 members to make the team. It was easy since everybody wanted the 3 Mighties cadets in their group. Once the cadets formed the teams, Vice Captain Joseph sent a file with their destination and with whom they would have to report once they arrived. Kane was a little surprised to find out that the city his group had to help would be Corin City. The mission involving that place gave birth to his first hot nightmare, and he had no pleasant memories of it. Of course, it never crossed Kane's mind to ask to be assigned to a different city. Since when did a soldier have the right to choose his battlefield? Less than 10 minutes after Vice Captain Joseph gave them their instruction and destination, all cadets groups spotted military trucks and left the Imperial Lightning Fort. Kane, Levi, and Beals were in the military truck heading to Corin City along with the other 7 members of their teams. The trio was the center of attention. Levy and Beals were the first cadets to reach level 3. Even among those at that level, they showed incredible battle prowess. As for Kane, while his cultivation was not that high, the killing skills he displayed when he faced Wink were still clear in all cadets' minds, and none dared look down on him. After a few minutes on the road, a young man with black hair and blue eyes broke the silence.
Since this will be a long trip, it will be an excellent chance to learn more about each other. Most of you already know me, but I will still introduce myself. My name is Lurin Sinar, second son of Count Sinar.
Lurin gave a short description of himself that mostly involved personal information. The other cadets did the same and showed friendly smiles as they spoke. The group of 7 had formed around Lurin and was mainly composed of talented cadets from humble backgrounds. Finally, it was the turn of Kane, Levi, and Beals, but the trio remained in meditative cultivation with their eyes closed. A heavy atmosphere formed in the truck as the trio did not seem interested in taking part in the conversation, and there was nothing the other 7 could do about it. Kane opened his eyes a little and glanced around the room before shaking his head.
Kane, level 2 Astral Wave Warrior. Specialties are lightning, speed, and strength.
Kane only said that before closing his eyes again. The description that Kane gave was different from the other cadets. It involved no personal information and focused on the one that would be useful on the battlefield.
Beals, level 3 Essence Wave Warrior. Specialties are ice, crowd control spells, and speed. Levi, level 3 Astral Wave Warrior. Specialties are fire, strength, and defense.
The other cadets turned toward Levi and Beals when they heard those words and saw that the trio remained with their eyes closed. Lurin could not help but sigh as he saw their attitude. The trio had no intention of forming any friendship, and if he went down that road again, they would simply ignore him.
Lurin, level 3 Astral Wave Warrior. Specialties are earth, defense, and defensive spells.
After Lurin did it, the other 7 cadets followed his lead. They were all level 2 wave warriors, with 4 following the Essence Evolution Path of Power and the other 2 the Astral Rebirth Path of Power.
Now that we know our abilities, it would be wise to form a battle formation. We could make deadly mistakes if we enter the battlefield as individuals. And even in the best-case scenario where we are not a burden to the others, we will lose much of our battle potential.
Lurin's voice was grave, making it clear he was not playing around. Levy and Beals opened their eyes and focused on the young man before nodding. The Duke did not have time or the desire for meaningless chatter, but if it involved the battlefield, they would pay their full attention. Lurin smiled as he saw that the Duke focused on him. He knew he was not the strongest in battle power, since even if his level was the same as Levi, he did not go through marrow washing yet. However, if there was something he was confident about, it was his skills regarding military tactics. It was not a secret that Lurin's skills in military tactics were good, as he proved it many times during the interactions in Vice Captain Joseph's class. That is why Levi, Beals, and the other cadets did not have a problem with him taking the lead in that field. Lurin smiled as he saw that, but an odd expression appeared on his face the next second when he saw that Kane did not seem to be paying attention. Even if Lurin's sense of superiority was not as obnoxious as that of other Scions, that did not mean he did not get angry when someone ignored him. Of course, Lurin knew that if he lost calm and shouted, it would not help him. If things went south, he was sure Levi and Beals would side with Kane.
Kane, you should focus on this. We will work as a team and need to consider the safety of everybody.
Although subtle, Lurin's words hinted that Kane's lack of attention proved an absence of care for his fellow cadets. Levy and Beals looked at each other and just showed a small smile before softly shaking their heads. They knew that while Kane was a little impulsive regarding his bottom line, he also had an exceptionally keen mind, and anyone who attempted to play games with him would regret it. Kane opened his eyes and focused on Lurin before a message arrived at everybody's AI chips. It had the title Battle Formation Team X. Who does he think he is? Lurin was furious when he read that message. He knew just how difficult it was to make a battle formation that involved a group of individuals you knew nothing about. Lurin almost balked out, and he was not the only one angry, as the cadets that came with him were also dissatisfied. A bad battle formation was way worse than none at all. Some of the cadets that came with Lurin did not have the restraint that their leader, but someone else spoke first.
Hahaha, that brain of yours is truly special. I am fine with it and will fulfill my role.
Levi laughed after seeing the file Kane sent and closed his eyes again.
I also have no problem with it. We'll follow your guidance.
Beals nodded and also closed her eyes. Lurin did not know what was happening, and then he saw how the cadets that came with him also began to show expressions of shock and awe. What is happening? Lurin had not bothered to open the file since, in his mind, there was no way Kane could come up with a proper battle formation in such a short time and with so little information. After a moment, Lurin took a deep breath and opened the file. Just like everybody else, shock and awe appeared on his face. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 84. 84 reaching Corin City. Inside the file that Kane sent, there was a thorough description of the role everybody would take. It left nothing to chance, and there were all sorts of backup plans and contingencies. There were even secondary roles they would take in case someone was hurt so no flaw would arise in the battle formation. The file also contained diagrams that made it easier for everybody to understand the battle formation and get familiar with it. No matter how much Lurin analyzed the battle formation, he could not find any flaw or way to improve it. There was also no favoritism in it, as Levi and Kane would be taking the lead, facing the greatest danger, which made sense as they were astral wave warriors. As for Lurin's role, he would be at the back of the formation, which was neither bad nor good. He would not face much pressure during most battles, but would have to remain on high alert to avoid sneak attacks. And if they needed to retreat, it would be his job to lead their way through the enemies on their back, a fitting role for a level 3 wave warrior with robust defenses. Lurin saw how the cadets that came with him looked at Kane with awe and respect. He had battle skills that could kill a level 3 wave warrior and was also a master strategist. What was there not to admire? Lurin was not narcissistic or stupid enough to reject the battle formation just because it did not come from him. He turned toward Kane and gave a deep nod before closing his eyes. Kane returned the nod and did not care about the gazes the other cadets were showing him, as he knew there was no reason to feel proud about it. He was not a master strategist, and the one that truly came up with the battle formation was the Absolute Life Form system. He used the AI chip module to scan everybody when they entered the military truck. That, plus the information they shared, was enough to generate several simulations of different battle formations. Kane just picked up the best that adapted to their team and sent it. That is why he closed his eyes when Lurin began talking about battle formations. Now that everybody was aware of the abilities of their teammates and had a way to work together, silence returned to the military truck. The cadets either studied Kane's battle formation or revolved their wave, ensuring they would be in perfect battle condition. After a few hours of travel, the group finally reached Corin City. Once they got out of their military truck and saw the condition of the city, shock appeared on their faces. The Imperial Lightning Fort had suffered damage due to the attack of the Atrox god, but it was just some fires and cracks on weak structures. However, Corin City was devastated, with most buildings reduced to debris. The worst thing was not the destruction, but the intense smell of blood, making it clear how many people had perished. Corin City had a population that surpassed the millions, most of them civilians, but it would be lucky if a fraction of them were still alive. Levy, Beals, Lurin, and all the other cadets could not hide their rage as they saw that. Deaths on the battlefield were one thing, as those in them were soldiers ready to kill and die, but butchering cities full of innocent people was entirely different.
Boom.
A blast drew the cadets' attention as they saw Kane's wave cloak bursting with power, and a ferocious killing intent appeared in his eyes. The idea of hundreds of thousands of women and children dying made Kane's rage reach its zenith, triggering his bloodline's emotional instability. However, it lasted less than a second as a red light appeared in his eyes, transforming all that rage into coldness. Although it was not at the same level that during his encounter with Wink, the coldness in Kane's red eyes drew fear in some of the cadets' hearts.
Let's go.
Kane said nothing else before walking forward. He deactivated Wave Burst but kept his wave cloak in place. Clearly, the place they were heading was far from safe, and lowering his guard was not wise. As for activating his armor, Kane did not do that, as soldiers could mistake it as him wanting to hide something. Levy, Beals, Lurin, and the other cadets followed Kane's lead, activating their wave cloaks. Without even realizing it, the entire group began to take Kane as their leader. Part of the reason was his skills and composure, but the main reason was that when he activated his ego wave, his aura overwhelmed the others. The group ran past the broken building and noticed blood everywhere, but there were no corpses. The soldiers must have already given them a proper burial. Kane's nose twitched as they advanced. He felt the scent of human blood covering the entire city, but also detected that of the Infernus demon race. Although the Atrox god led the incursion into the Empire, the continent controlled by the Atrox Immatus race, the Chronos continent, was incredibly far away from the Gaia continent. It made sense for the bulk of the Dark Race's army that infiltrated the Gaia continent to belong to the race that controlled the Atlas continent, the Infernus demon race. Nevertheless, it was not the scent of the Infernus demon race that drew Kane's attention, but the one belonging to Wave Beasts. The scent of Wave Beasts' blood was almost as strong as the one belonging to humans, so the number that perished in the city must have been astronomical. Although blood could incite the wild and ferocious nature of weak wave beasts, those creatures acted based on instincts and would not get near a place with life forms capable of destroying entire cities. There is no reason for a stampede unless. As Kane's mind figured out things, his eyes' coldness grew even stronger. He wanted to research to prove his hypothesis, but there was no time as they had already reached the military camp formed at the core of the destroyed city.
Stop and identify yourself.
A soldier at the entrance of the camp spoke to the group. Although she was just a level 2 wave warrior, there was no fear in her gaze as she faced Kane and the others. Kane's red eyes usually infused fear in people, but the woman was a seasoned soldier, and despite her weak cultivation, her will was strong. He had his ego wave activated all this time, despite the pain it caused, because without it, he would not be able to control his bloodline's emotional outburst. Kane did not hesitate and complied with the soldier's command. He looked at Lurin, and this one immediately moved forward, giving the woman a crystal card that contained their assignment and identifications. The soldier corroborated the card information before nodding to the group and leading them to a large tent at the camp's center. As they walked, they saw soldiers moving from one direction to the other, all displaying great coordination. There was no one slacking down in a moment like this.
Wait here.
The soldier said before walking into the main tent. Kane stared at the tent, and while it did not look like much, he knew it was a powerful artifact. It isolated everything inside, could act as a force field detecting any incoming threat, and was resilient enough to resist the sneak attack of a wave champion. 10 minutes later, the soldier came out of the tent and signed for them to enter. Inside was a group of 5 individuals, all with ferocious auras, and there was one Kane and the other recognized. Razman, who had taught them the Dark Race's assassination class for the last 3 months, was also here. Leading that group was a tall young woman with gray hair, tanned skin, and silver eyes. Not many clothes covered her body, showing her well-defined muscles and large scars. The moment the woman saw the cadets, a golden light appeared in her eyes, and a ferocious and terrifying aura emerged from her, overflowing the cadets. Levy, Beals, Lurin, and the others could not help but frown as they felt that ferocious aura. However, in Kane's case, the red light in his eyes only grew stronger, fighting off the mental pressure. At first, the woman had not noticed it as she could barely bother to pay attention to some cadets, but when she saw the red light in Kane's eyes, interest appeared on her face. She no longer pressured the other cadets and focused entirely on Kane, but it could not affect him no matter what. As the woman focused on Kane, he also did the same with her. She was clearly a wave champion, and the golden light in her eyes made it clear she had already entered the first realm of the ego eternal path of power. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 85. 85 We Are Soldiers. Kane analyzed the woman and was sure she was at wave champion rank, and the physical strength she projected hinted that she followed the astral rebirth path of power. What drew his curiosity were the two small sods around her waist. No rule said that an astral wave cultivator could not use melee wave artifacts, but unless they could extend their wave cloak into the weapon flawlessly, it would be more practical to just rely on their arms and legs to fight. Since she already entered the ego eternal path of power's first realm, her ego wave should be able to allow her a domain over direct flow as great as that of an essence wave warrior. Kane could analyze all that since no matter how much pressure the woman unleashed, it did nothing to him. Finally, the golden light in the woman's eyes vanished, and she showed a smile.
So you are the divine genius. Interesting.
The woman's voice was calm, but it made everybody in the tent focus on Kane. Lurin and the other cadets were confused. Although Kane's talent in the astral rebirth path of power was not low, it by no means gave him the right to have the title of divine genius. Only Levi and Beals understood that the woman referred to the ego eternal path of power. Kane did not care about those gazes and simply clasped his hands and bowed.
Cadet Kane Lorifer, presenting himself for duty.
Levy, Beals, Lurin, and the other cadets did the same. They all looked at the woman with cautious eyes since she was not only very powerful, but also somewhat frivolous. The woman seemed to have lost interest again and only nodded before turning toward the Razman.
Vice Captain Razman, you are familiar with these brats. Give them a task according to their abilities. Yes, Major.
Razman bowed to the woman before turning to the cadets.
Follow me.
Kane followed the dwarf out of the tent, but not without giving the woman one last glance. Just when they left, the soldier at the right of the woman spoke.
Major Luma, if that brat is a divine genius, should we allow him to enter the battlefield without protection?
Although the man did not know why Luma used the term divine genius with Kane, in his mind, anyone with such high appraisal should be protected, as they would rise to be a great asset to the Empire. Luma saw that the rest of the soldiers in the tent also shared that idea, but she immediately shook her head.
His path differs from the rest of the astral rebirth or essence evolution geniuses. If we protect him against danger, we would actually be harming him. And if that happens, that man will kill all of us.
Shock appeared in the gazes of the soldiers when they heard that. They saw the dread in their fearless commander's eyes and immediately changed the subject. As for the name of that man, none dared to ask it. Razman guided Kane and the others out of the main tent and headed to a desolated part of the camp. He stared at them for a moment before waving his hand and making a metal ball appear. From the metal ball, a virtual image emerged, showing the current Corrin city. The cadets immediately noticed that beneath the broken city, there was a set of tunnels.
We moved all the civilians to the underground tunnels. Initially, the task of cadets like you would be to establish order, but we are currently in need of manpower here, and you are strong enough to fulfill those tasks.
Kane and the others nodded as they heard that. Although there were many soldiers in the camp besides Major Lumu and the ones in the main tent, none had impressive strength. Those with true power were hunting down the Dark Race's powerhouses. Razman smiled when he saw that none of the cadets complained and accepted the change of mission.
Before I assign the mission, are you capable of killing level 4 wave beast and facing those at level 5?
That question confused the cadets. Some thought that Razman would ask them to hunt wave beasts, which made no sense considering they were in an active state of war. However, Kane's eyes narrowed when he heard that question. The reason why there was so much wave beast's blood became clearer. Although they were confused, Levi, Beals, and Lurin turned toward Cain to answer that question. Cain had already proved his military skills and had a proper assessment of their battle strength as a group, so if someone could evaluate their chances, it would be him. Cain closed his eyes as he used the AI chip module to simulate several battles against level 4 and level 5 wave beasts he had scanned in the past.
Against level 4 wave beast, our chances of survival are 99%, forcing it to escape are 86%, and killing it is 45%. If the enemy is at level 5, the percentages change to 82%, 43%, and 7% respectively. I cannot estimate what will happen if we face wave beasts with long-range skills.
Razman was honestly surprised by Cain's analysis. Although there was a chance the cadet could be lying, he did not believe so. That information satisfied the vice captain. Razman was about to give their command when he saw Cain raise his hand.
Yes. Are the wave beast stampedes occurring at a specific moment of the day?
Razman's eyes widened when he heard that. Cain's words contained a question, but also made it clear this one already knew there was a problem with wave beast stampedes.
Elaborate.
Razman's voice was solemn.
Yes, sir, I detected several scents of blood inside the city. One belonged to humans, a weaker one to members of the Infernus demon race, and the third to wave beasts. This last one is fresher, meaning the stampedes are still happening. Those beasts would not attack a broken city where they would die unless someone higher in the food chain commanded them. Wave beasts with that power are wise and would not attack blindly.
Cain's words surprised not only Razman, but also the cadets that came with him. One of them, a young girl, could not contain her curiosity.
Why would strong wave beasts send their minions to attack?
As soon as she opened her mouth, her body trembled due to Razman's sharp gaze focusing on her. They were not in a classroom, but in a military camp, and a soldier should only speak when allowed. Although it might seem exaggerated for Razman to react so fiercely to something so trivial as a cadet speaking out of turn, it made perfect sense. How could you be expected to obey the important rules if you don't obey the small rules? Luckily for the young girl, Cain took a step between her and Razman before bowing.
I am sorry about that, sir.
Razman was not so petty as to push things out of proportion for a small mistake as long as it would not happen again. He gave a slight nod before signaling Cain to raise. A small smile appeared on the dwarf face as he stared at Cain. A leader, even a de facto one, must bear the responsibility of the ones following him.
The attacks happen at night. The bulk of the stampede comes from the northeast position. You will head to the southwest position where things are calmer and take command of the 100 soldiers there. Most are level 1 and 2 with a few at level 3. Their previous commander perished 2 days ago.
Razman took out a crystal card with the assignment and handed it over to Cain before returning to the main military tent. Cain did not waste time and immediately headed toward the southwest position with the others. As they walked, he felt the gaze of the young girl that had awe, but there was also curiosity.
It doesn't matter why.
Cain did not look back, but it was clear to whom he spoke. The young girl was surprised by those words, and the curiosity in her eyes did not decrease at all.
But, although our current position is cadets, we are currently taking the role of soldiers. Our task is to defend the city and kill any wave beasts coming our way, as simple as that. There is definitely a reason behind the wave beast stampedes, and I already have a hypothesis, but it doesn't matter.
Cain stopped walking for a moment and turned to the young girl. The red light in his eyes generated an invisible pressure on everybody.
Unless the command given to us is something we cannot bear to follow under any circumstances, we will carry our orders without question or hesitation.
Cain saw that the girl understood his words and nodded before focusing on Lurin, startling this one.
Yes.
Lurin did not know what was happening. Before he could say anything else, Cain handed him Razman's crystal card.
You will take the lead, handle things with the soldiers.
After that, Cain walked to the back of the group, and everybody saw blood leaking from his nose, eyes, and ears. He had already reached the limit his brain could endure by forcefully triggering his ego wave. Without it, while he would not fall into a mad frenzy, he would have a hard time focusing his mind, so he handed the lead to Lurin. Although Levi and Beals were stronger, the duo was not precisely known for the people's skill, so Lurin was the best choice. Lurin was happy to take the lead, but he found it odd. However, Kane lowered his head after reaching the back of the group and did not explain that strange behavior. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 86. 86 Sinar County. It did not take long for cadets to reach the southwest position. Lurin was at the lead and immediately noticed the nearly 100 soldiers resting around a broken building. All of them looked exhausted and had all sorts of wounds on their bodies, making it clear just how hard the last few days had been for them. The soldiers also detected Lurin, Beals, Levi, and the other cadets. Most of them showed curiosity in their eyes, but some did not react so friendly seeing a group of young cadets coming their way. Lurin noticed that, but not even for a second did he show a flash of hesitation or weakness. He might not have Kane's imposing aura that pushed everybody into compliance, but he had trained his entire life for a moment like this. Once Lurin was 100 meters away from the broken building where the soldiers rested, he raised his hand, stopping everybody. All the cadets, including Beals and Levi, followed his command. Beals and Levi did not show any rebellious behavior. Soldiers needed a leader in a moment like this, and while they felt more comfortable following someone they knew, Kane handed the leadership to Lurin, and they trusted their friend's instincts. Lurin did not look back but saw how everybody followed that simple command the instant he gave it, allowing his aura to rise even mightier, making his next move easier.
I am Lurin Sinar. Vice Captain Razman sent us to this location to provide reinforcement and take leadership.
Lurin then took out the crystal card Razman handed to Kane and sent a copy of the information to all the nearby soldiers. Kane was still looking down, enduring the mental pain of using his ego wave and restraining his bloodline's emotional outburst. A small smile appeared on his face as he heard Lurin's words. Good, he spoke clearly from the beginning, stating our role and position to everybody. Lurin gave the soldiers a few seconds to read the information he had just sent before a sharp light appeared in his eyes.
All soldiers adopt a formation 50 meters in front of me. Now.
Lurin's imposing aura was growing with every action he took, and that shout was all it was needed for the Level 1 and Level 2 soldiers to immediately dash out of the broken building and farm in front of him. All those soldiers were equipped with wave rifles, as they lacked the proper skills to fight on a battlefield with their own abilities. Most of them showed large smiles as they stared at the cadets, since powerful reinforcements made them feel more secure, especially after the death of their previous commander. However, not everybody was so happy about the changes. The look in the 6 Level 3 Wave Warriors made it clear they were not thrilled that a group of cadets would take the lead. An incompetent commander could do more damage than not having one at all. Although the Level 3 Wave Warriors still joined the formation 50 meters in front of Lurin, they all walked calmly, showing no real respect. That was enough to tell everybody how they felt about their new commander. Lurin could ignore that defiant behavior and slowly show the soldiers his aptitudes, gaining their trust and respect. However, they would soon face hordes of wave beasts that wanted nothing more than to kill all of them, so time was a luxury he did not have. He focused on the strongest of the Level 3 Wave Warriors, a tall man with a bulky body who followed the astral rebirth path of power.
What is your name, soldier?
The bulky man did not bother to hide his boredom, and almost yawned when he answered Lurin's question.
Jamal.
Lurin's eyes narrowed when he heard the way Jamal spoke to him. The soldier did not show respect even after knowing he was the leader. In all fairness, most soldiers of the Imperial military force follow the chain of command without hesitation, but obeying a cadet scion, who most likely never had put a foot on the battlefield, was not something soldiers like Jamal could easily accept. Lurin took a few steps forward, leaving the rest of the cadets behind before focusing on Jamal.
Soldier, come here.
Jamal showed a small smile as he heard that command. He was smart enough to understand Lurin's goal, but there was no fear in his eyes. Lurin showed no emotion on his face as Jamal approached him. The soldier was almost 2 meters tall, much higher than his 1 meter and 75 centimeters, but that meant little to him.
I will ask one last time, what is your name?
Lurin's voice was calm, but there was a fosse beneath it ready to burst, just like a dormant volcano. Jamal shrugged his shoulders and smiled before speaking.
Jamal Hearns.
After that answer, Lurin did not wait even a second before unleashing his wave cloak and making it burst with all his power. He made the first move and tapped Jamal's chest. That touch had no strength, but according to the military rules, it meant that Lurin initiated the altercation, allowing Jamal to defend himself with all his power. Jamal smiled as he unleashed his wave cloak at full strength and sent a blow forward. Not only that punch had immense power, but the skill behind it was very good. Unfortunately for Jamal, Lurin dodged that blow by lowering his body. Jamal could not do anything to stop Lurin from tackling him to the ground. His eyes were full of surprise, as he did not understand just how a Saiyan could read his movements so easily. Lurin immediately positioned himself on top of Jamal before unleashing a barrage of punches, pinning this one to the ground. No matter what tactics Jamal attempted, Lurin could counter all of them. Although Lurin unleashed dozens of punches over Jamal, he controlled the power behind them so they would not provoke real damage. Yet, after 30 seconds, that changed. A flash of coldness and killing intent emerged in Lurin's eyes as he gathered an immense amount of astral wave in his right arm. Brown scales formed around the arm, making it grow almost twice larger. Jamal's eyes widened as he saw that draconic-like right arm, and dread filled his heart. Not only had the physical strength exponentially improved, but there was also a massive amount of astral wave enhancing it. Jamal was not alone in his shock. The fight was not out of line with the military. It was quite common to establish discipline this way in a society that cherished strength above all. However, killing a soldier for small acts of disobedience was over the top.
Boom.
A small blast echoed when the fist landed, but there was no blood. Jamal's eyes showed terror as he looked to the side when he saw the hole that Lurin's fist left on the ground. If it had landed on his head, he would have perished. Lurin's face was pale, making it clear how much energy that attack took from him, but the aura he unleashed became even stronger. He rose from the ground and focused on the soldiers.
I am your commander, and you will speak to me with respect. I have my orders, and you have yours. I will not allow any disobedience. Yes, sir.
All the soldiers spoke in unison. Cain raised his head, and he was surprised. He had chosen Lurin to take the lead because he was the best of the current options, not because he saw something special in this one. There were actually several plans on Cain's mind already to handle the soldiers if Lurin failed, but this one did everything great. Curiosity appeared in Cain's eyes as he stared at Lurin and did some quick research on Lurin County. Although the Empire protected sensitive information about noble families, he was only looking for some common knowledge.
Oh, so that is why.
Cain's research showed that Sinnar County was established less than 40 years ago by Rania Sinnar, a commoner who gained fame for his military exploits. If Rania Sinnar took an important role in the upbringing of his children, it made sense for Lurin to be so familiar with the military. That also explained Lurin's preference to form teams with people of humble backgrounds, his proficiency against military battle skills, and his leadership skills. Lurin almost smiled when he saw the look of respect and awe in the soldiers, but he could not break his dignified stance. He gave one sharp glance at Jamal, making this one rise from the ground and hastily return to the formation. Just as he was about to give the commands, Lurin's eyes narrowed due to a message that reached his AI chip.
All soldiers, speak your names, levels, and battle specialties.
The soldiers did not find anything odd about that request, since it was normal for a commander to ask for that information, but the cadets knew from whom it came. Some were not subtle and looked to the back of the group. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 87. 87 First Night. Cain frowned when he became the center of attention for those soldiers. That was the last thing he wanted, as he had already decided not to take a leadership position during the ensuing battles since his bloodline's emotional instability could kick in at any moment. In all fairness, someone like Cain, who could use Ego Wave, was a great leader, as that power could allow him to see everything from an objective point of view and think much faster. However, extended use generated a backlash, which he could not tolerate in battles that could stretch for hours. Kane remained silent, but not before glancing at the cadets that turned to him, allowing a flash of his red light to appear in his eyes, scaring them. Those young people were too naive and lacked situational awareness, something he could not tolerate on the battlefield. According to what Kane learned from Zarak's information, people felt afraid when he activated his ego wave, because it forced all who looked directly into his eyes into a clash of wills. It provoked the same feeling an average human would feel when looking directly into the eyes of a tiger about to jump toward them.
Begin.
Lurin saw that the soldiers were distracted, so he shouted with a stern voice, forcing them into action and pushing their thoughts about Kane to the back of their minds. Kane gave a soft nod when he saw how Lurin handled the situation, and his impression of the young scion improved. Knowing how to adapt to an unexpected problem was a fundamental skill for a commander. One by one, the soldiers gave their descriptions. While they were doing that, Kane used the AI chip module to scan them, improving his data pool. None of the soldiers was above level 3, so the system was able to analyze them at a fast speed. However, designing the battle formation for them was a challenging task. The more moving pieces, the harder it was to make a battle formation. The AI chip module could generate a battle formation involving 100 soldiers, but it would be too hard for them to learn it with the little time they have until the next fight. That is why Kane decided to divide the soldiers into 10 groups instead. Each group would have the same overall battle power, with members that could cover each other's weaknesses and enhance their fortes. Then, he would make a second battle formation that taught the 10 groups to act together. Lurin did not simply wait in silence as Kane worked. He acted immediately, guiding the soldiers to modify the terrain to the best of their abilities, so it would make it easier for them to face the wave beast stampede. The help those tactics could provide was not much, which is why some commanders did not pay too much attention to them. Still, Lurin's father taught him that every single advantage, no matter how little, could generate a ripple effect with immense repercussions in the battle's outcome. As the system constructed those battle formations, Kane began to analyze their future battlefield. 5,000 meters in front of their position there was a forest, and it would be from there that the wave beasts would come. Kane could feel the scent carried on by the wind and was sure those trees hid hundreds of wave beasts, ready to emerge at any moment. It would be easy for Major Luma or even Razman to march into the forest and massacre those beasts, but that would be a deadly mistake. If Luma or any vice captain abandoned the northeast position, it would allow the truly powerful wave beasts to march into Korin City. Once there, those beasts could make their way into the underground tunnels and butcher the civilians in minutes. Everybody had their jobs. Kane and these 100 soldiers had to reduce the pressure Major Luma faced, as simple as that. The passage of time helped Kane a lot. His brain finally recovered from the backlash of using Ego Wave, and his heart calmed down, no longer forcing him to suppress the wild rage that burned through his blood. Battle formations ready. Kane smiled when he heard that, and without wasting a moment, he sent them toward Lurin so that this one would pass them down toward the soldiers. Although he could have done it himself, soldiers needed a clear chain of command on the battlefield. Lurin was in the middle of helping the wounded soldiers to heal with the medicine stored in his space ring when the message arrived. He glanced at Kane and nodded before passing the battle formations. Kane saw that and nodded. He was not afraid that someone else could take the credit for his actions, since the Imperial military network recorded everything they did. Although thinking of merits during a situation like this could sound selfish, the truth was that everybody wanted their hard work recognized. That is why the Merit Ruler was such a great tool, as it allowed soldiers to do their best without worrying about taking the spotlight or securing recognition for fear it would be overlooked. Kane and the other cadets focused on getting to their peak condition, while the soldiers had time to familiarize themselves with their new battle formations. Finally, night came, and they heard it when it became pitch black.
H.
It was a feral roar that made all the soldiers and cadets tremble. It was so loud that it harmed their eardrums. The power of that beast was something none of them could imagine. Of course, that roar did not come from their position, but from the northeast, where Major Luma would be fighting. Kane looked toward the origin of that mighty roar, and a sharp light appeared in his eyes as his understanding behind the stampedes grew even deeper. However, he did not have the luxury of distraction as Ra's emerged from the nearby forest. Less than a second after that, hundreds of wave beasts emerged from the forest and marched with wild and furious gazes toward the broken city. Level 1 and 2 wave beasts made the bulk of the horde, but there were also dozens at level 3. Cain focused, and soon red light appeared in his eyes as he managed to activate his ego wave. Using it, he focused a significant amount of his astral wave into his eyes, allowing his vision to grow exponentially stronger. In a moment, Cain's eyes focused on a group of 6 wave beasts that remained at the forest entrance. They all were hornflame boars, ball-like wave beasts with flaming horns. Cain focused on them because the aura they unleashed was much greater than the other wave beasts, especially the one at the center that measured almost 2.5 meters tall. Lurin saw how the hundreds of wave beasts marched toward them, full of maniacal wildness, and it would be a lie to say it did not affect him. However, he knew if he showed any form of fear or weakness, it would break the soldiers' battle spirit, and that was not something he could allow to happen. Lurin raised his hands, signaling the soldiers to point their wave rifles toward the horde, but only commanded them to fire once it was 500 meters from their position. Wave rifles were not very precise, but the horde was so densely packed that every shot found a target. The soldiers worked according to the battle formation that Cain gave them, dividing the battlefield into different parts and spreading their firepower. That way, the effect it would have on the overall battle power of the horde would be more significant. Once the wave beasts reached the 200 meters mark, some of them began to fall into hidden pits and were forced to split into smaller groups due to the debris in their paths. Finally, the cadets marched forward in full armor once the wave beasts reached the 100-meter mark. Cain and Levi led the group. Beals took the middle with the other cadets around her, and Lurin in the back. Raging flames covered Levi's body, while lightning coated Cain's extremities. Levi's fire had grown stronger after his marrow washing and advancing to level 3. As for Cain, he had already reached lightning armament's 2nd level, allowing the lightning to coat his legs and fists. The Duke could kill with a single blow all the wave beasts in front of them, and the other cadets made sure to rain destructive spells on the horde at point blank. Those actions diminished the number of wave beasts even more, while also drawing the attention of the others, decreasing the amount that reached the soldiers. Of course, many wave beasts still reached the soldiers' location, but the wave warriors capable of meal battle took care of them. That was how the first night of Cain assuming the role of a true soldier began. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 88. 88 facing a level 4 wave beast. The soldiers fired dozens of beams from their wave rifles every second, killing more and more wave beasts, slowly thinning down the horde. Those soldiers who followed the astral rebirth path of power or were strong enough to fight with their own power were in a close-quarter battle against the wave beasts that made it to the city's periphery. Among them was Jamal, who showed impressive battle skills as he shattered the bones of the beasts in front of him. Soldiers carrying wave rifles and the ones battling with their own power helped each other. Those with wave rifles decreased the horde, reducing the pressure on Jamal and the others and allowing them to do a better job stopping the horde from advancing further. Although the collision between the soldiers and the wave beasts was impressive, the one that truly drew awe was the clash between the cadets and the horde. A small group of just 10 people advanced deeper and deeper into the horde, leaving a trail of blood and corpses in their path. Most of the beasts' corpses had their heads blew up, holes in their skulls, and their blood frozen. That group entered so deep into the horde that they were attacked from every direction, but they kept moving forward, and no wave beasts could pierce into their formation. Levi and Cain were like death machines, killing all the wave beasts in front of them. The first unleashed an explosion every time his fists or kicks landed, while the second transformed his arms into lightning spears. Levi sent all the wave beasts that faced him flying away with their bodies blown to pieces. As for Cain, he was much more subtle, with his fingers piercing the heads of the beast before scorching their brain with lightning. The focus in the duo's eyes reached their zenith as any failure on their side would mean that the entire battle formation would shatter to pieces. Beals and 6 Maw cadets stood behind the duo, blasting Maw and Maw spells into wave beasts attacking from the flanks, while also at the same time sending some of those powerful spells to the front of the formation, diminishing the pressure Levi and Kane faced. The soldier and cadets faced immense pressure, and the threat of death was present every second. Still, thanks to their teamwork and battle formation, even after more than 3 hours of fighting, no casualty appeared on their side. Rage began to appear in the largest of the Hornflame Baws. Hundreds of its pawns had already perished under those humans, yet they achieved nothing other than draining their energy.
Order.
It roared, sending a signal to one of the smaller Hornflame Baws. The smaller Hornflame Baw showed no hesitation as it marched forward. Every stomp had so much power that the ground beneath its feet cracked. There was a fierceness in the beast's eyes as it advanced faster and faster, increasing its momentum. Kane and Levi noticed the Hornflame Baw marching toward them, crushing some of the weaker wave beasts in its path. The duo knew waiting for the Baw to reach them was not wise. It would have generated such immense momentum at that point that it could force them to stop advancing. Wave beasts surrounded the cadets. If they stopped moving, they could overwhelm them. Kane and Levi looked at each other and nodded. Levi made his wave cloak burst with all his power, increasing his battle strength while also depleting his energy at an accelerated rate. Kane did the same, pushing his wave cloak to its highest level, achieving a 300% wave burst. He then focused his astral wave on his legs before dashing forward at full speed. Thanks to lightning armament and his bloodline, Kane's speed was even higher than that of Levi, making it easier for him to navigate the sea of wave beasts toward the Hornflame Baw. Of course, the wave beasts in Kane's path attacked with maniacal fury, but he either killed or avoided them, not stopping for even a fraction of a second. Just slowing down would mean certain death. The Hornflame Baw saw the small human marching toward it, but the only thing that appeared in its eyes was an even greater fury. It perceived no threat from a level 2 astral wave warrior like Kane, and was even offended if someone like that would dare to face it. Kane saw that the Hornflame Baw suddenly marched with even greater strength. He did not bother with the reasoning of the beast, as they were already close enough for him to use the pseudo-cellular analysis tool. Target scanned. Race, Wave Beast. Lineage, Hornflame Baw. Path of Power, Wave Beast Level 4. Stats. Strength 1.2. Agility 0.7. Vitality 1.5. Life Wave 1.4. Kane's eyes narrowed as he saw those numbers. The Hornflame Baw he was about to face was a level 4 wave beast, and its raw stats surpassed him in every single way. If it weren't for his lightning armament achieving level 2, exponentially enhancing his speed and reflexes, he would have never dared to try something like this. Once Kane and the Hornflame Baw were less than 50 meters away from each other, the wave beast roared, and the flames from its horns spread all over its body. 7 points in agility meant that Hornflame Baw was 14 times faster than an old-world athlete. It could cover those 50 meters in less than a second. Kane felt immense pressure as he saw that massive beast coming his way, but right then, red light emerged from his eyes, pushing all fear and hesitation away. When the Hornflame Wave Baw saw those red eyes, a feeling of dread assaulted it, and it knew that the man in front of him was extremely dangerous. Unfortunately, it realized that piece of information too late. Kane triggered his ego wave in the last second to maintain the facade of weakness and make the wave beast lower its guard. He did not wait for an instant before pushing his wave burst to an even higher level and, using his enhanced senses, slid down between the legs of the Hornflame Baw. The level 4 Hornflame Baw was shocked to see the human show such incredible speed and battle skill, dodging its charge, sliding down between its legs, and positioning himself beneath it. A feeling of doom assaulted the level 4 Hornflame Baw as Kane focused all his astral wave into his arms, striking at the same time while also using his kinetic gauntlet's level 2 kinetic blast.
Boom.
An explosion echoed through the battlefield as Kane's attack landed point-blank in the wave beast's belly. The level 4 Hornflame Baw was more than 2 meters tall and weighed over 8 tons, yet Kane's attack sent it flying away, crushing many wave beasts on its path. Blood leaked nonstop from its maws, and there was no light in its eyes. Silence reigned on the battlefield for a moment as both humans and wave beasts turned toward the clash with shock and awe. Although one might think there was not much difference between level 3 and level 4, that division was a major bottleneck. Although it was not impossible, it would not be easy for a level 3 wave warrior to kill a level 4 wave beast. Yet, Kane, who was just at level 2, did it with a single attack. There were plenty of wave beasts around Kane, but they froze for a moment as dread assaulted their hearts. That dreadful power and those red eyes stopped them from attacking. Kane did not waste that opportunity, rising from the ground and immediately dashing back to the cadets' formation. He did not rejoin the front with Levi, but entered the middle and stood beside Beals. Although he seemed fine, Beals could see how Kane's face was ghastly pale, and his arms did not stop trembling. Clearly, the last attack not only drained most of his astral wave, but also harmed him. Kane said nothing and focused on recovering as fast as possible. He could feel the microfractures on the bones of his arms, but that was something he expected to happen. Level 2, Kinetic Blast, was something only level 4 Astral Wave Warrior should use. Not only did it drain too much astral wave, but the backlash was not something weaker cultivators could handle. Kane could do it thanks to his ego wave, allowing him to focus an immense amount of astral wave on his arms and reinforce the bones. The blood refinement art also played an important role, as it enhanced the resilience of his muscles and other tissues. After overcoming the initial shock, the Hornflame Ball leader roared with rage. It could not believe one of its strongest pawns could die at the hands of a mere level 2 wave warrior. Although it seemed ready to march forward, in the end, it did not. Kane noticed that, and his mind began to work. Still, he maintained his focus on the battlefield, and under his guidance, the cadet formation made its way back to the city. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 89. 89 Killing During Retreat. Once the cadets group moved back to the city's edge, they helped Jamal and the others reinforce the perimeter, while the soldiers carrying wave rifles kept raining fire over the horde. The Hornflame Ball leader saw how more and more pawns perished, and the rage in its eyes grew stronger. There was a clear desire to march forward, but although it had not fully developed wisdom yet, it knew how to follow commands. The one in command of these wave beasts, Stampedes, made it clear that it should not enter the city and only attack the soldiers outside it. Personally, the Hornflame Ball found that command stupid, since if he were to charge into the city, it could go on a killing spree. Of course, it did not dare to defy that order. What the beasts did not understand was that while the Dark Race's powerhouses destroyed most of Corrin City's defenses, the city still had a scanning force field in place. With it, Major Luma could know the exact location of any wave beasts that enter the city. Although it would not be easy, she could send an attack from the northeast position to any part of the city. Of course, performing such an attack would drain a lot of power and distract Luma, putting her in danger. She would only do it if the target were worth it. The cadets and soldiers kept fighting with all they had until the first ray of sunlight appeared on the horizon. A mighty and feral roar echoed through the city, emerging from the northeast. It came from the same wave beast whose roar triggered the stampede, and this time it marked its end. The Hornflame Ball also roared, commanding its pawns to move back. Today's fight was over. However, not everybody thought that way.
On meat.
Kane shouted from the center of the cadets' battle formation, and his astral wave burst with might that sent blasts of air around him. He had used the last few hours to recover on the center of the formation, and now that the wave beasts were moving back, it was the perfect time to unleash his power one last time. Those words should not be enough to move more than 100 people who were beyond exhausted by this point, but the sight of Kane killing that level 4 Hornflame Ball was still clear in their minds. Seeing that ferocious astral wave compacted around Kane's body, while lightning coated his arms and legs, made their blood burn with excitement. Kane marched forward at full speed, and he was not alone since Levi was right by his side. The duo began a massacre as they killed the wave beasts close to them. The rest of the cadets also attacked with all the power they had left. As for the soldiers, they moved forward, firing their wave rifles on the horde. A tactical retreat was a highly complex maneuver, as it left the army full of openings, and only the best commander could do it flawlessly. A wave beast horde couldn't achieve such a level of coordination. Usually, it would not be a problem as the soldiers would be too exhausted to pursue the retreating wave beast horde, but things were different now. There were no casualties thanks to Kane's battle formation, and although some soldiers were wounded, none were in critical condition. That already left them in high spirits, and the sight of such a mighty warrior marching forward was all they needed to keep fighting.
Lara,
The Hornflame bore leader roared with rage, as it saw how the humans kept attacking its forces even after they pulled back.
boom.
It stamped the ground, breaking the earth beneath its pawns as a blazing fire covered its body. When the soldiers and cadets detected that aura blast, they all grew worried. Luckily, there was a sharp voice that washed away their fear.
It won't attack, keep going.
Kane shouted, and there was a sense of absolute confidence in his voice that helped the soldier and cadets. They kept moving forward, killing more and more wave beasts. It was a true massacre, as those beasts were so focused on running away that they neglected their defenses. Only when Kane and the others were 400 meters away from Corin City, he raised his hand and shouted again.
Stop.
Although the thrill of battle almost blinded some of the cadets and soldiers, Kane's voice was enhanced by his astral wave, harming their eardrums and forcing them to focus. Kane's eyes glowed with massive red light as he used his ego wave to the highest level possible. An agonizing pain had already assaulted his mind, but that was not why he stopped the group. The 400 meters mark may seem arbitrary, but it was far from that. At this point, Kane and the others could return to Corin City before the Hornflame Ball leader could get to them, even if the beast marched with all its power. Despite the immense distance and the hundreds of wave beasts between them, the Hornflame Ball leader and Kane exchanged glances. One was full of mad fury, while the other was cold and calm. The Hornflame Ball leader stomped the ground repeatedly, but in the end, it turned around and moved back to the forest. Kane's eyes did not relax until he was sure the Hornflame Ball had left. Although wave beasts were not known for their scheming abilities, it was better to be safe than sorry. He took a deep breath and deactivated his ego wave, allowing the raging pain to calm down. If I could use my ego wave without limiters or backlash, I could face level 4 wave beasts with confidence. Kane only shook his head and knew it would still be a while before he found his true nature. He was still too young and experienced too little. Not wasting more time with unnecessary thoughts, Kane dashed toward where the level 4 Hornflame cops had landed. He was about to send it toward his space ring when a voice interrupted him.
Wait.
Kane frowned as he heard that and turned to the side. The one that shouted at him was Jamal. He was not alone since all the other cadets also sent sharp glances at the soldier. A level 4 wave beast was valuable, but since Kane killed it without any help, there was nothing wrong with him taking possession of the cops. Jamal almost trembled as he saw those gazes and immediately raised his hands.
I am not trying to steal anything from you. However, according to the rules given by Major Luma, we must hand over all the carcasses of level 3 and above. She will reward us with Imperial military credits in exchange for them.
The cadets calmed down when they heard Jamal's explanation, and they all nodded. If the order came from Major Luma, they could do nothing. A soldier must respect the chain of command. Kane's eyes narrowed when he heard that. He could not blatantly disregard the order of a major in the military, but he wanted this body.
As long as we hand over the corpse, there is not a problem with the state of this one, right?
I guess so. Jamal found the question somewhat odd, but he answered. It was obvious that the corpses would be riddled with injuries since they were on a battlefield. Kane nodded before focusing his astral wave into his right hand and piercing the level 4 Hornflame Ball's corpse. His entire arm entered the beast's body until he finally reached the heart. As the cadets and soldiers wondered what Kane's plan was, they saw how the Hornflame Ball's corpse began to tremble. Slowly, the blood inside its body began to vanish. All that vitality flooded Kane's body, helping him recover the energy used in the battle while at the same time nurturing his flesh. Kane noticed how his actions drew the attention of the others. He would have preferred to use his blood refinement odd away from everybody's sight, but he had to adapt. Lurin was also surprised by Kane's abilities, but he did not waste time and began to mobilize the soldiers. The first thing was to tend the wounded before taking care of the hundreds of wave beasts' corpses spread across the battlefield. A group of soldiers began to move across the battlefield, storing all the corpses in space rings. Those artifacts did not belong to them, but to the military. While Kane consumed the blood and tempered his body, he also analyzed his battle tactics. Although today he managed to kill a level 4 wave beast, he knew the only reason he achieved such a feat was the beast underestimating his abilities. I need to be prepared. Today's battle was worth celebrating, as they damaged the wave beasts hard and suffered no casualties. Yet, Kane knew that expecting things to carry on that way was too naive. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 90. 90 Dangerous Plan I. The following nights went on as expected. Wave beasts' hordes would march out of the forest and attempt to reach the city, with the soldiers doing their best to stop them. There were open channels between the leaders of the squads guarding the different battlefields. Lurin was technically the Southwest leader, but this one was smart enough to share all the information he got with Kane. All the cadets and soldiers showed respect for Lurin, and none of them questioned his orders, but the one that was the true leader in their mind and who they would follow in case everything went south was Kane. A Powerful will had a magnetic effect on people, especially on the battlefield, where everything was uncertain. For the cadets and soldiers, every time they saw the red light in Kane's eyes, they felt all doubt vanishing. In their hearts, as long they obeyed Kane's orders, they would survive. Lurin knew how the cadets and soldiers looked at him, and there was nothing he could do. He did most of the work, but it was Kane's commands the one that had the greatest effect on the battlefield. Although he would have liked to take the undisputable role of leader, Lurin accepted that his skills had yet to reach that point. Instead of getting bitter about it, he learned from this experience. He focused all his mind on studying every command Kane gave and how this one analyzed the battlefield. Personally, Kane liked this arrangement. Lurin was intelligent and capable enough to take care of the soldiers and cadets 95% of the time, leaving him with only the 5%, which were critical points when no flaw was allowed. Kane saw how the sun was setting down when Lurin reached his side. This one began to inform him about the latest news of the other battlefields, making him frown. 10 days have passed since Kane joined forces with the soldiers, and the number of wave beasts they killed had already reached 6,000. Yet, the size of the hordes marching kept increasing, and that was not only in the southwest position, but in all others as well. It won't be long before the Empire warriors finish their hunt for the dark races powerhouses hiding in the collapsing lightning sector. Once that happens, they will be able to rejoin the main forces and butcher the wave beasts. I assume the one behind the stampedes knows that and is going all out at this last stretch. Lurin's eyes narrowed as he saw Kane's eyes glowing with enlightenment from time to time, as if this one could analyze those hundreds of moving pieces and give them order. He had seen that before, but never in a cadet. It was the light that would glow in his father's eyes when this one analyzed information about the battlefield before marching to war. Kane did not notice the look in Lurin's eyes. As long as there was no resentment or other negative emotions, he had no time to worry about the thoughts of the Scion. The expression on Kane's face grew somber as he understood that the danger they would face in these last few days would exponentially rise.
Our current fighting force.
Just asking that question made Kane's expression grow even more severe. To make things worse, while their enemies' number increased, theirs diminished. Like a miracle, they have yet to suffer a single casualty, but many soldiers endured life-threatening wounds and had to leave the battlefield.
We have 79 soldiers left.
Lurin made a slight pause at this point before continuing.
Regarding the wounded some.
Lurin could not finish his sentence as he saw 2 red eyes focusing on him, which directly pressured his willpower.
Were you saying something?
Kane's voice was eerily cold as he uttered those words. Despite him being a level 3 astral wave warrior and Kane only at level 2, Lurin felt immense danger. Just like the other cadets, he remembered the tactics Kane used against Wink, and there was no doubt in his mind that he would not have survived.
Nothing.
Lurin took a deep breath and spoke. Kane nodded and made the intent behind his actions clear. He had used the pseudo-cellular analysis tool on the wounded soldiers before they left and knew some would not survive, but he did not share that information as it could affect morale.
Do you have the things I asked?
That question drew Lurin back to reality, and his gaze grew sharp as he handed a space ring to Kane. Since he was technically the Southwest leader, it was his job to take care of supplies or acquire battle equipment. As Lurin saw Kane analyze the content of the space ring, a troubled expression appeared on his face.
Are you sure you have to do this? The dangers are too great, and a single wrong step could mean your death.
Although Lurin's words might sound like that of a close friend worried, they were those of a commander who analyzed everything objectively. A true military commander should have the strength of character to ask a soldier to do a mission that he knows would result in this one's death. Lurin worried about Kane's life because of the role this one had in the hearts and minds of the others. Seeing Kane march into battle and butcher powerful, wave beasts raised the morale of all the soldiers, allowing them to fight beyond their limits. But if he were to die, their spirits would crumble. Those were the pros and cons of having your leader take the lead on the battlefield.
If I don't do it, who else?
Kane spoke calmly, and his eyes did not leave the space ring. Those words shook Lurin. His eyes went to Kane's ribs and shoulder, and he saw their deep wounds. In the lost battles, 2 level 4 Hornflame bars always marched into the battlefield, and it was Kane's job to handle them before they could achieve a momentum that could shatter the cadet formation or, even worse, reach the soldiers. Although Levi was the strongest in the group in terms of offensive power, only Kane had the speed and reflexes that would allow him to march out of the battle formation into a sea of wave beast. Although Kane had suffered severe wounds, everybody else would have perished, so no one else could do the job. Lurin gave one last glance at Kane before nodding and going back to the soldiers. Kane put the new space ring on his right hand before closing his eyes and using the AI chip module to perform simulation after simulation.
H.
Deep into the night, a feral roar made Kane open his eyes. He turned to the forest and saw wave beasts marching toward them. Kane joined the cadet formation, and the clash between humans and wave beasts continued. The cadet formation went deeper into the horde while the soldiers rained fire on them, gradually diminishing their numbers.
All right.
Less than 2 hours after the initial clash, Kane heard the Hornflame Bar leader roar and sent 2 of the level 4 Hornflame Bars into the battlefield. Kane's eyes narrowed, and red light burst from his eyes as he pushed his ego wave to its limit before dashing forward. Although it might seem dumb on the Hornflame Bar leader not to send all its strongest warriors together, it was not willing to risk them. If the 4 level 4 Hornflame Bars were to enter the battlefield, there was a chance the humans could activate some trump card that could take them all down. The Hornflame Bar leader reached that conclusion based on past experiences. Corrin City had those trump cards, but the assault of the Dark Race's powerhouses destroyed most of them, and the ones left were positioned in the northeast position. Kane had already figured out the Hornflame Bar leader's apprehensions and thoroughly used them. However, he also knew that they would not work for much longer since the moment the one behind the Stampedes gave the order. The Hornflame Bar leader and the 4 level 4 Hornflame Bars would march together with all their power. That day could come very soon, which is why Kane was ready to attempt something dangerous. Kane advanced faster and faster, not allowing any of the weak wave beasts on his path to interrupt his momentum. When the 2 level 4 Hornflame Bars were 100 meters away from Kane, they lowered their bodies, preventing this one from dashing beneath them. Even if wave beasts were not smart, that did not mean they were stupid and they could learn. However, what happened next filled the 2 level 4 Hornflame Bars with utter confusion. They saw the human close his eyes. They were about to clash, and the enemy chose to shut off one of his more important senses. It made no sense for the level 4 Hornflame Bars. The next instant, they saw the human throw a rectangular device into the air, and before they could do anything, it exploded, unleashing a blinding light that burned their eyes. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates.